Hello friends, welcome to Pap Studio. This is Bubal and today we're going to talk about the Mockk. Mockk is usually for a Kotlin genuine test cases. So let's see how we supposed to integrate that and how we supposed to use that one. Okay. So first of all, why we need to write the test cases. So test cases are very important because if you are validating your one function for a number of scenarios, and in future if you want to make a changes in the specific functions, the changes you made may broken the existing functionality, right? That you never know if you don't write the test cases. Otherwise, if you don't write the test cases, you have to manually validate all the different possible scenarios. Oh, and no, then you have to certify it, right? So if you have a unit test cases, even if you make a changes, if it's run successfully, you can assume that the previous scenarios are working fine even after making changes in such a way that programmatically we are ensuring that everything is going good. So let's see how we supposed to integrate it. I went to my Kotlin versions. I just added these two things. One is for a mock contract and mock agent. These two things has to require to integrate the mock here, and then I'm just bundling these two together as a mock within a bundle, so I can use this mock. Actually, I'm trying to write the heuristics of a network layer, so I just added it here. It's a text implementation like bundle and mock, which means those two libraries will be attached to test implementation. That's part is done. Now we just to start writing the JUnit test cases. So first of all, where you supposed to write the JUnit test cases is there is something called as test. Here this is under your instrumentation test cases will go to the under test, your JUnit test cases will goes under test folder. Okay, so this is the example. At the moment by default you guys will be having this one. If you run test with the coverage, you could have seen the 0 0 because we are not written any test cases to cover this functionality. Okay, so replace with that it's saying 0. So now we need to write the unit test cases for Py remote data repository first. Okay, so to create the unit test cases, if you press alt enter, it gives you the option like create a test cases. Then you just have to specify okay here. So let's delete this one and then start writing the unit test cases for this. Okay, to use the mock key to write the unit test cases for this. First we will talk about the mock. So suppose if you want to create an object, that object you cannot able to create because it has some dependencies, you just can mock that object and you can play around it. Okay, for example, creating remote data source with mock, that's my function name, and you can say like mock by remote data source equal to, we have to use this one mock key, and by remote data source, then that's it. Then it will create the mock object for this is a mock object, which means it doesn't have a real object, so it is a mock. So you have to mock all the functions like whatever it's available here. Okay, so let's say if you want to fetch app config, again you have to mark that fetch app config, just going back and saying that mock configuration fetch app config. So if you look at that, it is like a suspendable function. To invoke the suspendable function, you just have to put in the run blocking. So let's go ahead and do this one. So it internally goes and it will gives you this resources.app config. It is gonna emit the resource.app config, right? So it make a call, and if it's successful it gives a success, otherwise it gives you the error. You can collect this value response and see the response equal to asset not null. At the moment we'll check this response supposed to be not null. So actually it's supposed to make a network call and get this operation, but JUnit test cases, we are not creating the full object. It's a mock object. Typically it won't make any network calls, but it going to give some response. Let's see what response it gives and what will happen. Okay, whether the code coverage is getting impacted or not just by adding this code. So I'm just running this test cases. The expectation is it would be fail because we are just mocking this object. Then we'll have to tell all the functions available inside the classes that what will happen if this function has to be fired. Your Mockk will ask you like what I supposed to do when the specific function is called. So that things we are never specified at. You can specify those things by using the every. So every says mock, okay, it's like hey, someone calling the fetch Afghan, right? You just have to answer them or return them a value. What value it's gonna return? So resources of uh, app config, right? So you say resources dot success, you say app config. Okay, so look at this, it's giving that this error again because it's a suspendable function. If you want to call any suspendable function, you need to have a coroutine scope. Okay, we don't have a coroutine scope at this point in time, so either you can use run blocking to make it satisfy. So let's do the Aki way of doing this, run blocking, and then now you try to execute the test cases. Maybe it gets passed now because we are telling to the mock like hey, somebody's calling this one, just return this value. In number 19 it's actually making a call, it's gonna returns with the value whatever we are configured here. Okay, this one way. And there is something called as a coEvery, right? So coEvery is specially made to call the suspendable function within this block. So instead of using the run blocking, I'm just using the coEvery like a coroutines that helps you to perform the suspendable function or helps you to call the suspendable function within it. And even if you replace every with the coEvery, that error will be gone, and then you would have see that the same kind of responses here. Okay, right, perfect. So with this one, let's execute the code coverage and see whether is there any improvement has happened with this numbers or not. So I'm executing the test cases. If you see that one, there is a no core impacts because I'm just calling this fetch config, right? Which means I'm called this function, maybe one of the lines would have been executed and it has to show some code coverages here, right? But it's not happening because we just created the mock object. So mock object, since it won't be like considered as executing the real test cases, which just return the value as and when you just hit it. Okay, so if you're testing for the specific class, don't create a mock for that specific class. You can create a mock for dependent values. For example, 5 data source. To create a Py data source, if you want moi config means you can mock this one. You cannot mock this targeted class which you're trying to write the unit test cases for. That's the first rule you're supposed to think about it before doing Mockk. Okay, so let me correct this one. Before that, I just want to specify one more thing. Like last time without run block, what has happened is throws an error, right? Because you are not specify what's supposed to do when specific function is fired. So it says that this error like no answer found. So how we gonna satisfy this? For example, if my repository has hundreds of functions, I cannot create a dummy value for each, right? So to overcome this problem, we have something called as a relax mocks. So just adding the relax, Mockk will be taking care of providing some dummy value as and when the specific function is fired. So if you go into the fetch config, it go and give some value so that this gonna will get satisfied. So we go back and create a real remote data repository, and here we need to pass the imoi config, right? So I'm going and create the mock imoi config and say mock and I more config and relax as true, which means I'm creating the relax mock. Then I'm passing that moya app config here. So now if you look at it, I'm creating the real object. I'm making this call on the real object. So let's see what's gonna happen. It did some changes. Let's see whether the code coverage has been improved or not. Look at this, it goes under percentage method and 85 lines of code cover. Wow, just by doing this one, if you go inside, you could have seen that what function has been covered and what function is not. So it says that it comes up to here. This is a mock, anyway, we all know it's a mock, right? So it actually throws you a error. So that's the reason if you validate this one, it would be a error. Okay, so when you call fetch config, it goes here and execute this one. IMO config, most probably it will give the error response like a successful is it will not be possible. That's why it's going here. If you look at this, it's a green color, right? This is a red color. So now we need to configure this one so that it go inside the block and execute this function. Let's see how we can do that. So I'm again mocking this one here. So coEvery, so whether we need to do the every or not is based on the suspendable function. I'm saying every, so mock imo config. If somebody calling fetch config to you, again is a as it's a suspendable function, we end up with going for a coEvery returns response of what response is gonna be is responses of successful, and that gonna be app config. So if somebody calling this one, and what response it would be, so the response of retrofactor object, right? So what response are we sending? Are we sending retrofactor response? Perfect. So I'm telling to coEvery, if somebody calling this first specific function, you just do this one. We will do it in the bottom. The first one would have been validate the error messages, second one would be validating. This one is validate error screen error. We can check those errors equal to not null. Okay, this block gonna validate the success response. So the same here, copy pasted, and you will have to check the data must have some value here. Okay, let's execute these two things right now. If we executed it, it will pass at the moment. So what exactly it's doing is like we just mocking this value like moi config here, and if somebody calling if you look at it here, fetch app config, it internally calling the fetch app config, right, from the imo configurations. Last time we are not produced the data, now we are producing the data. So now if you run the code, coverage is supposed to say under percentage. Let's see what will happen. So replace with active suits. There you go. So under percentage. So all the lines are covered. Now it's became as a green for all. Right. So this is how it's supposed to be done. And there is something called as verify. If you're calling one function, that function internally calls another function, whether you want to validate whether that internal function has been fired or not, or how many times got fired. Those kind of validation you can do with coVerify or verify. Verify is used for the normal calls, and coVerify you're supposed to use for suspendable function if you're calling something. Okay. So the better example I could give here is like I'm calling this mock fetch app config, but it's internally calling this fetch app config, right? Our configurations fetch app config. So I need to validate here. I need to verify whether this function has been fired exactly or not. So how I can do that one is we have something called as a verify. Then I know that it would have called internally mock eyes fetch app config. So as it's a suspendable function, just make it as a co verify exactly. So how many times it's supposed to be called, I can specify it here, one time or zero time. If it's not gonna be called any point in time, I could have said zero here. My expectation is it's supposed to be called only once. That's why I'm giving one. Okay, that's cool. If it says that it's failed, why it's failed? Two matching call found, but at least one of okay. Oh, is it because we called it twice? Maybe that could be a reason. Otherwise we can remove that exactly one. We'll perform this validation again. Yeah, it's called success because we would have called it here as well as here, right? So that could be the problem. If you say exactly two, it would have get passed last time itself. Yeah. The next one we talk about is a spiky. So last time If you use the mock or relaxed mock, you are mocking the whole object, right? Whereas when you use the Spyk, you can able to mock only the specific functions. So which means you will be creating the object, but you are mocking only the specific function by using the coEvery kind of thing. That's a one scenario. And the second scenario would be like you can inspect the real objects. For example, I'm taking this, I'm creating the Spyk for the object whatever I have earlier, Spyk remote data source equal to, I can specify Spyk, and then mock. uh, Actually it's not a mock 5k at the moment because it's a real object, right? So I'm just spying this specific object, and then if I call any functions internally, I can able to spy everything. So what it internally does, those kind of thing I can able to spy. So actually we don't have any function that can show you. Let me write another function, like make addition. So let's say I'm calling this function for two times, make, okay. So I'm here, what I'm doing is it's supposed to be run blocking because it's a suspendable functions. Let's say if I want to verify whether how many times that specific, actually if you look at it, the name could confuse you. Let me rename this one to Py data repository, Py remote data source. Now we are, this is not a mock, right? So this is not a mock, but I want to verify. Now if you call the fetch app config, it internally making a call to make additions for two times. Okay, so how do I verify this one? For example, if I do verify here, let's see whether it works or not. Verify exactly. So we don't need to do the co-verify also. We just say verify and by remote data repository and make additions. Let's see whether it's making a call exactly two times or not, because we are doing it here. Four times supposed to make a call, right? So let's see what's happened. Let's see what will happen. I'm executing this one, whether this verification has happened properly or not, that we need to check. Keep in mind, this is a real object, right? So missing inside the call block, okay? So missing call inside the verify block kind of thing is gives you the mock exceptions. Like line number 34, it gives exception like mock exceptions because it's telling to you it's a real object. I'm not able to check what has happened. I'm not, the verify functions not able to go and verify what has happened in the real objects. Okay, in the specific scenarios, to inspect what has happened in the real object, we supposed to use the Spyk. So I'm taking the Spyk here, I'm just taking the real object, then I'm making the call for this one, fetch app config, then I'm just doing coVerify and seeing that how many times it's got called Spyk repository dot make addition. So it's supposed to call two times exactly, right? Because I'm making the call on top of this specific object, right? I'm seeing whether I can able to do that or not with the real object, because last time it's failed here. Yeah, yes, I can. So this is main use cases of Spyk. Spyk especially used to inspect the real objects, okay, to see whether it is internally calling some other function or not. This one will be really helpful while you are checking the void function, because void function does not return you anything, right? So at what base do you want to validate the void functions? What I mean is, for example, this is a void functions, and it internally makes some other calls, make complex additions. Let's say if you are sending the integer here, count is an integer functions. To validate this kind of functions, let me remove this one to show you exact this stuff. Let's validate this one, how it's supposed to do it. So for this, what you're supposed to do is like make complex function for 5 times, and then you just have to verify this one, like how many times it exactly get called. So make complex additions. There is no other way, right? Because the void function is not returning you anything, but you want to check whether this specific function is making this calls a number of times specified on the top. So this is a better way of validating that one. Let's see what will happen. Oh, it's giving you the error saying that 6 matching calls found. Okay. Oh, yeah, because we are going 0 to count, right, less than or equal. So now just correcting that for loop. Now we should be good at the moment. Yeah, there you go. That's it. Hopefully this video may help you to understand the difference between these items like a mock, relaxed mock, every, coEvery, spy, verify, and coVerify. Please let me know if you guys still have any questions. I'm very much happy to answer that. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching the video. Stay tuned. Bye bye.